Okay, should say using quotation marks and italics. So, who can tell me what quotation marks are? Sean, what's quotation marks? Yes, when someone is saying something, exactly what they are saying. So, if I said puppies, the quotations are those around what I am saying. It is not parentheses, don't get confused. And what's italics?
What?
Is that thing still on the board of women? Italics is, well, you'll only use when you're on a computer. If you're not on a computer, then you will underline it. So that's how it normally is on a computer. And when you're putting it in italics, it'll be like kind of slanted. But that's hard to write. Okay? We're going to read about it in a minute. Okay, so you see the difference? Okay. Who can read rule number 1? Sawyer. Very eager.
I like about italics. Isn't it like in books or sometimes when there'll be like something, someone will like say something but it's not true, and they'll say my dad did.
Sometimes it is in book when a word that they're saying is really emphasized, it'll be in italics. So when you're saying it, you really emphasize that word. Yeah, but we're going to use it for something else. Rule number 1, Ross, you want to read?
Use quotation marks before and after the exact words in a direct quotation.
So the example was, for centuries, people dreamed of flying, Iris said. So the part that she actually said is in quotations. Rule number 2, Allison.
Use quotation marks with both parts are divided
Quotation. Right, so for the example here, there's 2 parts of a quotation, and in the middle it's saying, said Ray. So both of those parts where Ray is talking, it will be in quotation marks. Rule number 3, Matthew.
Use a comma or commas to separate a phrase such as he said from the quotation itself. Place the comma inside closing quotation marks.
Yes, so Chan said, comma, and then what he said is in the quotations. Or, it was a great advance for civilization, comma, and then you end the quotation marks. And then you say, Lou said, period. Rule number 4, Sean.
Place a period inside the closing quotation marks.
Yes, so if it's the end of your sentence and the punctuation is part of that sentence, the period is going to be inside of the quotation marks. Rule 5. Preston.
Basically, question mark or a
Exclamation.
exclamation point inside the quotation marks where it is part of it.
Yeah, so the quotation listed in the book, it says, when did jumbo jets begin carrying passengers? So that's a question, so we're putting a question mark there inside of the quotation marks because it's still part of the quotation, what they're saying. Caden, rule 6.
7?
We're on 6. Yep.
Place a question mark or an exclamation point outside the quotation marks when it is part of the sentence.
Good. So when the exclamation point or the question mark is part of a bigger sentence, not just the quotation, we're putting it outside of the quotation mark. So the example here, it says, the quotation is jumbo jets are just big airplanes. That's not a question, right? That's just a statement. So we're not going to put the question mark inside of the quotations. But part of the bigger sentence is, did I really hear Sam say? That's the question. so we need to end the sentence with a question mark since it is a question. What are those wiggling heads back there?
He's a goblin.
It's kind of funny how, like, you could be saying no, but you're saying it.
It is hilarious.
Yes, it's very funny.
Alright, so does rule 6 make sense? Do you know if it's part of a bigger sentence, if there's a bigger part of the sentence and the quote is just a little part in there, then in the punctuation, the question mark or the period or whatever will be outside of the quotation. But if the whole sentence is just about the quotation and the punctuation is included in the quotation, that's part of what they're saying. Part of what they're saying is a question, then you'll put the question mark in the quotations. Lots of keywords stumping me. Okay, does that make sense?
Yep.
Any questions about that rule? Just that rule? Okay. Rule 7, Colin?
Use quotation marks around the title of a short story, essay, poem, song, magazine, or newspaper article or book chapter.
Alright, so these are just smaller things, just a short story, just the chapter of a book, just a magazine article will be in quotation marks. Rule number 8. Isabel.
Use italics, underlining for the title of a book, play, film, television series, magazine, newspaper, or work of art.
Okay, so this is when we'll use italics while we're typing. But if we're not typing, we're just writing, then we'll underline. So like a whole magazine or a whole television series, the entire book, the entire play, the entire movie, like we just did on DOL, Raiders of the Lost Ark, that's the entire movie, so we underlined it. Alright, and if we had been typing it, then we would have used those italics that I showed you. So for homework on page 565, you're only doing exercise 8. So you will write the words for each of them, and you'll only be using rule 7 or rule 8. So it tells you if it's a short story, if it's a magazine, if it's an article, and you'll look at rule 7 and rule 8, and you'll decide if it needs to be in quotation marks or if it needs to be underlined. Your question? Trevor, what's your question?
Yeah, we have like rewrite the whole thing.
Yes, you don't have to write the part that's in the parentheses. That's just telling you what it is. So like number 1, through the tunnel. That's telling you that it's the name of a short story. Yeah. Yes, what's your question? Kilimanjaro. So we'll do number 1 together once you have a piece of paper out. Okay, so number 1, through the tunnel, it's telling you that it's a short story. So we're going to look at rule 7 and rule 8 on the page next to it. And we're going to look for short story. So is short story part of rule 7 or rule 8? Rule 7. Okay, so what does rule 7 say? When we're using a short story, do we use quotation marks or do we use italics and underline? Yes, so we will write through the tunnel and we will put these quotation marks here. Does that make sense? Only 10 of them. No, it's not expensive. No, you don't need to write the part that's in the parentheses. That's just letting you know what it is.
What does Adele mean? Much ado about nothing.
Much ado about nothing.
Well, yeah, what's that?
It's kind of like slang for much ado about nothing. Just exercise 8, you guys. Just those first 10 questions. Yes, yes. Write the whole thing and then put the quotations or
underline it, don't just write which one you need to.
You're gonna look at either
What
rule
is
7 or rule 8.
character?
So number
I
1
don't
was what you're gonna do.
much
Yep,
ago
rule
about
7 and rule 8. So number 2 was a newspaper.
What's
A newspaper. So you have to look, is that under rule 7
Just
or rule
underline.
8?
use denied.
We just under.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry. We're looking for.
Yep, right there. So that's rule 8. Rule 8 says for newspapers, we're going to, yes, so you'll write.